Hello, and welcome to the Back to School training. In this section of the Back to School trainings, we're going to focus on accountability beginning in the 2021-2022 school year. I'm Jennifer Stafford, the Director in the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support. With me today is Helen Jones, Branch Manager in our division. This section of the training focuses on the accountability for the fall reporting in 2022, so 1 year from now. We're going to also focus in this section on accountability for the 2022, 2023, and beyond. And we're also going to bring you some updates on other regulatory amendments. So let's start with the accountability beginning the 2021-2022 school year, so the one that we just started. Senate Bill 158 in the 2020 General Assembly had a great impact on accountability. It modifies the components of the statewide accountability system. It brings together components of indicators into what will be evaluated as status and change. Now, status includes what we've done previously. In our previous accountability systems, we've only reported information on that current year. So the indicators have always been on that current year status and performance of our students. And that's what in the new accountability will be known as status. Now, the idea of change will be the difference between the current year status and the previous year status. So those terminologies will become more clear as we move toward the future assessment and accountability systems. Now, Senate Bill 158 also requires the overall performance. So the indicators, all of the indicators that we have in the system, be brung together into what we call an overall performance. Status and change will be eventually reported separately on what we're calling an online dashboard. Now, we have some components of an online dashboard in the school report card currently. We have had indicators of colors and things of that nature. And we'll continue to present colors and expand that dashboard on that school report card. Senate Bill 158 also implemented dates for the accountability systems. Now, due to the pandemic and the federal waiver that we received from the spring of 2021, that will have impact on those dates, and you'll see those in just a moment. Now, you'll notice here that beginning with the data from the 2020-2021 school year and the 21-22 school year, that is information and language pulled directly from the statute. And you can see there in brackets that it is delayed to the 21-22 and the 22-23 school years because of the federal waiver from accountability we got for the 2020-2021 school year. So beginning with the 21-20 school year, 22 school year, which we're just beginning, and moving into the 22-23 school year, the accountability system and overall performance will be presented for each school district and each student demographic group on those indicators. That overall performance will combine equally for status and for change. Now, all that information again was pulled directly from the statute, because you know we use the student demographic group terminology and not the subgroup terminology. Also pulled from the statute is the combining equally of status and change. We talked with the drafters of the statute, and they have come to an understanding that it would be unfair to have each status and change to be weighted equally within the future systems. Because if you have a very high performing school that has very little margin at the top end, it would not be a fair comparison of their change compared to a school that has a lot of room to grow and to improve. So that terminology of equally combining status and change may not be implemented as 50% of status and 50% of change due to that nature of the schools that are high performing. Now, for all students as a group and individually for those student demographic groups, the status will begin this coming year. So this school year we're beginning, the 2020-2021 school year, will be determined for the actually it's the 21-22 school year that we are just now beginning this academic year for status. And then the change will come in during the 2022-2023 school year. So this coming year, the 21-22 school year, will have status like we've always had before. And then in the 22-23 school year, then we'll have the change measure. And we'll use, again, that status being the current year performance and the change being the comparison from the current year to the prior year. Now, for each indicator, and Helen's going to go in depth on each of the indicators, the statute says there'll be 5 levels of status and then 5 levels for change. For the status on each of the indicators, it will range from very high to very low. So for each of the status, the school and district will receive a range of very high, medium, low, or very low in their status. For change, there'll be 5 levels that range from increase significantly to decline significantly. So you can imagine that your change would be reported on your indicators of increased significantly, increased, maintained, or remained the same, declined, or declined significantly. Now, during a standard setting that will take place over the summers of 22 and 23, percentile cuts for status and then again for change will be on a distribution that will be approved by the local superintendent advisory council as well as the Kentucky Department of Education. Those percentile cuts will remain in place for at least 6 years by statute. Now, there is one caveat to that percentile cut within the statute that says that if those cuts no longer support meaningful differentiation of schools, they may be changed. So the goal is for the system to remain in place and steady for 6 years. And there would be nobody that would be more excited about that than the Office of Assessment and Accountability. So we will look forward to maintaining a system for a period of time. Now, beginning by statute the fall of 22, but it's again delayed till the fall of 23 for full implementation, that online dashboard of all of the system. So that overall dashboard will be, again, color-coded by performance levels for some easy interpretation of the results. So the results will be presented for each indicator, overall performance of status and change for each district and school, and for the student demographic group, and then individually by all the federally reported student groups. And that overall performance, again, will be aggregated on those indicators. Now, the summary of the regulation changes included includes the fact that the language of the regulation will align to the statute. So 703 KAR 5:270 is the regulation that puts in place the changes of Senate Bill 158. So we had to go through the steps to amend the regulation to align to that statutory change brought about by Senate Bill 158. So the changes in the regulation include alignment of the language to the requirements of Senate Bill 158. We also added updates to the process used for dual credit in the accumulation of either an academic or career readiness piece. So there's a bit of change there. And that change is to align to the process that is currently being used to collect that dual credit for our students. Other recommendations from the Kentucky Board of Education were discussed beginning in November of 2020, and those included the combination of bringing status and change together in the indicators, the weights that we'll talk about for each indicator, and the performance and inclusion into that overall performance rating. We talked with the board at length about the minimum N count, as well as the progress toward English language learners in that indicator that includes some flexibilities from the federal level. Now, other changes brought about some reporting requirements that were required as part of Kentucky's consolidated state plan. So there are a number of changes to the regulation. Now, the timeline for the change in this regulation included, we started in August of 2020 with an overview of the discussion with the Kentucky Board of Education. We moved into October and November. We had meetings with the Kentucky Board, and we really sought their guidance and direction from the members of the board, and they provided some really good direction and thoughts toward the regulation. We were able then to take their guidance and directions and draft an amendment to the regulation, which had a reading in December and then the second reading in February. Then the regulation went into a 60-day public comment period where many of our district assessment coordinators had input on those changes, and many other of our stakeholders. And then in June, we went back to the Kentucky Board of Education with a statement of consideration, which again brought about more changes. Currently, right now, at the time of this reporting, we have had a number of questions from our legislative committees. We were in front of the EARS committee, which is the Education Assessment and Accountability Subcommittee, and we presented to them. They had a couple of questions, and now the regulation is moving through the regulatory process, and we're looking toward late fall providing an effective regulation date. So we look forward to having a finalized regulation very soon. So we'll continue to monitor that as it moves through the legislative committees and that regulatory process. And of course, we will communicate on monthly deck webcast if once that regulation becomes effective. So we anticipate that the new accountability system will be in place for the 2021-2022 school year. So it will become effective this fall. And for the school year, it will only include the accountability indicators on status only. Now, those indicators of the state accountability system include state assessment results in reading and math, state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing, which writing includes on-demand as well as editing mechanics, progress on English language proficiency. Now, this is for our English learners, and Helen's going to go into a little bit more depth on each of these. the Quality of School Climate and Safety Survey indicator, as well as the Postsecondary Readiness and graduation rate. Now, as a reminder, the federal accountability waiver from the 2021-2020 school year, there will be no reporting this fall. So again, for the 2020-2021 school year, we had that federal waiver, so that there will not be reporting for accountability in the fall of 21. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Helen Jones, who's going to provide more in-depth information on each of these state accountability indicators.
Hello, my name is Helen Jones, and I'm the branch manager in the Division of Assessments and Accountability Support. I'm going to share information with you on the indicators identified through Senate Bill 158, as well as how the proposed overall performance will be displayed. Let's get started. The state assessment results in reading and mathematics is known as Proficiency in Mathematics. This indicator is reported at the elementary, middle, and high school. This indicator is a measure of the student's knowledge and skills on state assessment results. It is designed to measure how students attain achievements in Kentucky academic standards in reading and mathematics. The next indicator that we're going to look at is the state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing. The writing component, as Jennifer stated earlier, is based on two components. For writing, students will be assessed, the writing component will comprise of editing and mechanics, as well as on-demand writing. This indicator was previously known as the separate academic indicator. This indicator is reported at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. The state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing is a measure of the student's knowledge and skills on state-required academic assessments. This indicator is designed to measure students' attainment. Again, it's very similar to the state assessment results in reading and math, in that this indicator is designed to measure students' attainment on Kentucky academic standards in science, social studies, and writing. Let's talk about the progress of English language proficiency. This is new as a result of Senate Bill 158. This indicator is also reported at the elementary, middle, and high school level. The status for the indicator is the individual student's growth on the English language proficiency exam from year to year. The change will be the difference in school performance of English language towards English language proficiency. And this will include students currently identified as English learners. The English learners progress indicator shall be measured based on a growth value table. Let's move on to the quality of school climate and safety indicator. Again, this indicator is administered and reported at the elementary and middle school levels. This indicator is a measure of perception. The data is collected through a survey that measures the school environment. The quality of the school climate survey, if the school is a caring environment. What is the quality of the relationship that the students experience at the school level? Does the climate foster a student's sense of belonging? The school's safety has 4 components. It looks at the personal safety of the students, the physical safety, the emotional safety, as well as the site. Is the building safe? The survey is administered in an online setting to all students at all tested grades. That's grades 3 through 8, 10, and 11. I will mention that during the 2020-2021 administration of the Quality of School Climate and Safety Survey, this included information, we collected information around the opportunity to learn. Just to note, this particular component of the school quality and safety survey may continue in the future. Let's move on to the post-secondary readiness indicator. This is an indicator that is applied at the high school level only. We previously looked at this indicator as transition readiness. This indicator is the measure of the attainment of the necessary skills, the disposition for students to be successful as they transition to either higher ed or career. Has the students received or attained those necessary skills to be successful? This, for students to be post-secondary ready, students need to demonstrate post-secondary readiness by earning a regular or alternate high school diploma, or be classified as a grade 12 non-graduate and meet one of the readiness components, either academic or career. All students with a G code in IC and grade 12 non-graduates are included in post-secondary readiness. They are accountable based on the 100-day rule. Finally, let's move to one that's very familiar, and that's the graduation rate. The graduation rate indicator is also applied at the high school only. This indicator measures the percentage of students who enter high school and receive a diploma based on their adjusted cohort, either 4 or 5 years. The graduation rate is reported for all students and all student demographic groups. And these are those federal groups that are identified in the federal regulation. Alternate students and students who do not graduate will impact the school's graduation rate. That's both 4 and 5 years. We want to note that schools that fall below the 80% in the graduation rate on the 4-year graduation will be identified as CSI. Let's talk about the proposed overall accountability weights. As you can see, federal law requires that the greatest emphasis is on reading and mathematics and EL progress at the elementary and middle levels. At the high school, the federal law requires emphasis of reading and mathematics and graduation rate. Based on this requirements, let's take a look at the proposed overall accountability weights. As you can see, the weights distribution will allow the proposed accountability to meet the federal mandates with elementary level reading, mathematics, and EL progress. At the elementary, if you add those 3 together, the percentage will be 56. For middle school, you'll see that the emphasis is 51 when you factor in reading, mathematics, as well as EL progress. At the high school level, you'll see the emphasis there is for reading and mathematics and graduation rate. So if you factor in the reading and mathematics as well as the graduation rate, you will see we'll meet the emphasis of 51. Senate Bill 158 requires that we have a dashboard that will display the overall designation in a color-coded dashboard. This dashboard will display the overall performance ratings for the elementary, middle, and high school, and be reported using a color rating system to communicate the school's performance. It will go from red being the lowest rating all the way up to blue being the highest. There are 5 performance levels from highest to lowest. And again, blue would be the highest rating, then green, yellow, and in the middle, then middle will be yellow in the middle, then orange, and the lowest will be red. We mentioned the federal designations. Let's discuss the federal designation as it applies to our accountability system. As schools do not meet the requirements, there are 3 federal designations that schools could fall into. We have the Comprehensive Support and Improvement. There is Targeted Support and Improvement, or TSI, as well as Additional Targeted Support and Improvement, which are ATSI. Currently, schools in Kentucky identified for federal designation will continue to be supported in the 2021 through 2022 school year. For the fall, that's this fall, the 2020 fall, no schools will exit due to the waiver which we received from the U.S. Department of Education. The waiver prohibited federally designated schools from exiting this year. As we move into spring, we will receive additional information that will be announced regarding exiting criteria. This will take place. We will not have any schools. We will not know for sure which schools will be eligible for exiting until the fall of 2022. And with that, we're going to move into talking about the minimum N requirements.
Thank you, Helen. The minimum N ensures appropriate inclusion and reliability into accountability systems. Through discussions with the Kentucky Board of Education, there was a lot of emphasis put on reliability in the accountability system. Having fewer students in the accountability system provides a little bit less reliability than having more students. So the direction the Kentucky Board of Education went was for more inclusion of students into the minimum N to therefore produce more reliable results that can be interpreted and used for instructional purposes. So for the accountability system, the minimum N will be 30 students per school or student demographic groups. Now, in the previous system, at each school level, we used 10 per grade. So we were almost implementing the 10 or 30 per school because we were looking at 10 per grade. There was a few nuances that we changed in order to get to the 30 per school. So moving into the 2021 school year, for inclusion and accountability, their student demographic group would have to have 30 students in that group for the entire school, not just per school, per grade level. Now, for transparency, we will continue to report at 10 students per grade in the school report card. And as a reminder, here in Kentucky, we report by school level. So that's elementary, middle, and high school. So that is the application of 30 per school will be at those levels. Now, beginning in the 2022-2023 school year, it will include not only status, but also change. So that status, again, is the current year performance of our students that we've always done in the past. But in the 2022-2023 school year, we will then begin the change measure that compares then the 22 school year status with the 23 school year change. And we'll have information again in the school report card for both status and change beginning in then the fall of 23. And the status and change will combine then into that overall performance rating, which will be a color, as Helen mentioned. Now let's take a look at an example color chart for each of the indicators. You can see on the left-hand side status, and across the top is change. Status, again, for each of the indicators will be from very high to very low. Change for each of the indicators will be from increase significantly from the prior year to decline significantly from the prior year. So each of the indicators that Helen just described, whether it's state assessment results in reading and math, state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing, quality school climate and safety, graduation rate, transition ready, English language proficiency, progress, each of those indicators will have a table similar to this one. Now these tables will be developed by Kentucky educators, brought together in a standard setting, so that how you read this table will be for the status, if a school gets a status of very high, and then the change from the prior year is increased significantly, then you would see box B would be the color reported for that indicator. If the school, for another example, got very low in the current year and declined significantly from the prior year, it would be box A, and it would be reported for that indicator as red. So that's how you read this type of table. And so all of the indicators will then come together into a different color chart that Helen just described. Now, as defined by Senate Bill 158, KDE and the local superintendent advisory group will approve those numerical cuts along these different measures that would take you from one cell to the next and move that performance. So these will, again, be by indicator, and then all the indicators will be combined together for an overall color. Now, in addition to the accountability regulation, there are a number of other amendments to regulations that are going through the legislative process and the regulatory process that include the administration procedures and guidelines within the 703 KAR 5:240. Now, we've already implemented this change in the removal of the extraordinary circumstance non-participation. This was a finding during the most recent federal audit from the U.S. Department of Education. For many years, we have submitted the same type of documentation, and it had extraordinary circumstance in it, but they have asked us to remove that extraordinary circumstance, and we are currently doing that. The other change that was brought about by the U.S. Department of Education federal audit includes removing the limitation that English learners in kindergarten who met the benchmark to be fully English proficiency was not able to exit the program. So we're glad to announce that this change also took place for the prior school year, in the 2021 school year. So this will have impact then on our inclusions of special populations training. So other changes were made to the inclusions of special population regulation include clarifying language as well as refine some expectations. So you can look forward to having updated inclusions of special populations training in the fall when these two regulations then become effective as well. This does conclude our training on the accountability for the 2021-2022 school year and beyond. We hope that this information is clear and comprehensive for you. Please watch our other back-to-school trainings that include access, alternate assessment, assessment, report and reporting, as well as the end of course. We thank you for your time and all your service for Kentucky students. Thank you.